Good morning. Let's wait for people to join. I can't decide if I want coffee or water today. So I got both. Am I quiet today? I am making a mixed drink. I'm dragging today. So Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night, I went to my son's performance and I was up till midnight. And that is not like me. And then yesterday, his performance was at 2:00. So I went there at 2:00 and got home and did animals. And I'm dragging, I'm not going to lie. And then I was like going to sleep a little late today. And then Shane's like, Judy, get up. I'm running late. I need my my lunch fixed. I can't do it. And I was like, oh gosh, let me try to get up. So I'm a little like, I need to wake up this morning. Definitely need to wake up this morning. Today is a clean the farm day. So I drained the duck pond and I've got to go do that. And I need to clean out a couple of coops today if I get a chance. But usually when I set the day and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be cleaning some coops today, then something happens with Larry or something like, and I don't ever get to do it. So I'm kind of scared to tell you what I got planned today because it never goes as planned. But that's just how life is around here because we juggle many things. And I want to give a shout out to my husband for taking care of Larry while I went and saw my son perform. I've told you guys in another live, Shane is Mr. Tough Guy, like he's you don't see him cry, things like that. And to watch him hold Larry's hand to walk him to the bathroom and him in here preparing Larry's lunch and dinner, I was just like this. I was kind of dumbfounded. I was like, he knows how to do that? Like it was such a precious moment for me to watch. I was like, I had no idea he had that in him. But it was really it was a bit emotional for me to watch because I just never expected that. I was trying to do everything before I left, like make sure Larry had his lunch and his dinner, and like I took him to the bedroom so he wouldn't have to walk to the bathroom. And I was trying to get everything and all our ducks in a row. And I hired a caregiver for Saturday and Sunday because Shane was supposed to work. And that went well. A lady came on Saturday and then another lady came on Sunday, but Larry did not like it. When I got home last night, okay, I'm not gonna say that yet. I got home last night and I said, how did it go with the caregiver? She didn't have to do nothing. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I didn't go to the bathroom. I said, well, Larry, I left at 12:00. The caregiver didn't leave till like 5:30. So you didn't go to the bathroom from 12. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Put in my head. I thought he's trying to show his independence. Like, I do not need a caregiver. I am not, like, I'm going to sit here and hold it and not go to the bathroom because y'all have brought this caregiver in to help me and I'm not going to the bathroom. You know what I mean? Like this, like, rebellious child that doesn't want to stay with the babysitter. Like, and I saw Shane, I was like, oh my God, this is a disaster. This is a disaster. It makes you laugh a little bit because I can get it. Like, I can see where this is difficult when your kids are hiring sitters for you. Like, it seems stupid, right? For you, because you're like, there's nothing wrong with me. Why are you hiring these sitters? Like, what the heck? That's embarrassing. I can see that. But it's like, Larry, you keep falling when I leave. And so it's just, oh my gosh, Michelle Kelly is here. That was my childhood best friend. I used to spend the night at her house when I was a little kid and we used to dance. Anyway, I'm so glad to see you here, Michelle. Okay. I'm taking my glasses off and I become blind. So it's hard for me to read comments. But I also take my glasses off to put my makeup on. But I have been searching for the correct words, the professional words, the right thing to say to y'all. And I'm struggling. I'm not going to lie. I'm struggling tremendously in knowing how to. Kayla is no longer with me. So she's not my moderator. She's no longer working for my farm. And I'm not going into details because I love her with all my heart. And I hope one day that things will be different. But as of right now, Shane and I have sat down and we have, when you own a business, you have to consider a lot of different things, like what's best for you financially, what's best for you, especially when you have group homes and kids at your farm and you're in the public eye. Like, there's so many things that Shane and I have to consider being in the public eye and having my dad here. And so what's best for Larry, what's best for everybody. And right now, my focus is not on having field trips and not on, I'm really trying to not be as open to the public because I'm trying to put my concentration on taking care of Larry. Therefore, no money's coming in much at all. And so financially, it was a financial decision for us to go, okay, we're spending all this money on someone to help you clean out the coops per se. And I'm going backwards, like financially. Like, I just can't afford to continue to pay someone, and neither can Larry. Larry exhausted majority of his money when he was in the nursing home. And we realized that the person that needs to take care of Larry needs to be someone that has nursing skills, because we're dealing with a lot. We're dealing with using the bathroom and cleaning up, like a lot of things that is embarrassing to Larry, and the independence is going away. And we realized that we needed to hire someone to help us that's more of a nurse setting with Larry. And as far as my farm, for the past, I have been open to the public since 2020. I've always done everything by myself. Always. I've never, I mean, if I hired someone, it was because they were volunteering at my farm per se. Now, I do hire people for my field trips, but like usually people volunteering come and help me. I've never really had to pay a salary to someone. And so paying a salary to someone became difficult for me because I don't get a salary myself. My farm is a nonprofit farm, and I don't make enough money to even pay myself. Sneed's Farmhouse is a hobby. It's a hobby farm. My goal for Sneed's Farmhouse is to continue to give back, and I realized that sometimes when I give back, I think that I'm doing the right thing. In my heart, I think that I'm going down a path and I think I'm making right decisions. And then I hit a stop sign and go, oh, I don't think I should be doing that. And so it is a very hard decision for me. I love her with all my heart. And I pray for her and hope that the best for her. But for me and my farm, I'm just not going to go into detail. Just know that it was a very tough decision for Shane and I. Very tough. Okay. Now to get on to some lessons that I've learned this weekend. So, I'm sorry, this is very hard for me. Okay. Suck it up, Judy. All right. So I went to my son's performance all weekend. And on Thursday night, okay, where the theater is located, it's kind of downtown. It's kind of downtown Florence. And so anytime you're downtown, you kind of see all kinds of things, right? Like you see people that are homeless, and so I have been going to my son's show. He has lived in Florence, I think 2 years now. And so I know that the area that I'm going in, I know I need to be careful because it is not the best of areas. Like there's not. So on Thursday, I was looking for a parking place close to the theater because I was thinking about my safety. And there was a parking place right in it was not in front of the theater. It was over to the side of the theater on the next street. But when I was at the red light looking to the left, I saw this man that was talking to people that were not there. And I was thinking in my head, maybe I should not park there, because the man was right in front of the parking place. And I was looking at him, and he was obviously homeless. And I just said, I better just go find another parking place. So I had to park several blocks down, and it was dark. and I had to walk. And I wasn't scared. Like, I wasn't scared or anything like that. But that man, I said something, Vanson, after the performance, Vanson said, "Mom, where did you park?" And I said, "I'm down there." And I said, "I wanted to park closer, but there was a homeless man." And he said, "Yeah, and he named his name. He goes, "Yeah, that's such as," I'm going to say Jimmy. "Yeah, that's Jimmy. He's homeless. He stays on that street." And I was like, "You know him?" Like, and he goes, "Mom, everybody knows him. Like, everybody around town knows that Jimmy lives on that street." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And Vance was like, "Let me walk you to the car, to make sure you get to the car safe and everything." Well, then Friday night, they had several events going downtown. They had this little spooky event where there was Halloween stuff. And then on the next block, there was like tons of people, like some kind of, where they had vendors and stuff like that. And so, and I had a friend with me that day, and we had to park kind of long way from the theater again and walk. And I saw Jimmy again. And on Saturday, I went by myself, and I saw Jimmy again. And I got to the theater early Saturday, and I sat in my car and I watched Jimmy. And I sat there, and he has a shopping cart that he's, taking around, and he's got it filled with clothes and all kinds of things. And I sat there and watched him. And there was a lot of things that came to my mind as I began to watch this homeless man. The first thing that came to my mind was, that's what I'm scared of becoming. Like, I sat there, if you don't know my biggest fear, I say all the time, my biggest fear is to become homeless. And, some people fear, I don't know, drowning in the water or falling off a cliff. My biggest fear is that I'm homeless and everyone's left me, and I'm left here to fend for myself, and I have nothing. That's my biggest fear. Has been for a long, long time. And so I just sat there and I was watching Jimmy. And the whole time, Jimmy is having a conversation with someone that was not there. So when that started happening, and I was sitting, and I kind of rolled down the window a little bit to listen to what Jimmy was having a conversation about, it was just like I couldn't even understand him, because I don't know if Jimmy didn't have any teeth, but his words were not totally plain. And I just sat there, and I kept thinking in my head, because over the past 8 years, I went from watching my younger brother, he's 5 years younger than me, own a successful business his whole entire life, like very successful man, always driving the nicest of the nicest car. He lives in a big old house. My brother has always had it together. And over the past years, I've watched a little bit at a time my brother going downhill. Like, I watched him at first, there were bugs in his body, and I watched him burn his body to try to get the bugs out. And I was like, is he crazy? Like, is he crazy? He freaking set his body on fire with turpentine? Are you kidding me? What's wrong with our brother? And he was trying to convince us that he had bed bugs. He moved his entire family out of the house. And I've watched this unravel little by little over the past 8 years, until now my brother is homeless. And as I sat there and watched Jimmy, two things were going in my mind. I thought in my head, Judy, this is really what you're afraid of becoming? Like, really? That's what you're going to be? Like, really? And then I kept thinking, that's someone's brother. And I was thinking, that's someone's child. And the best they can be is pushing around a buggy, talking to the air, living on the streets. That's the best he can do. And as I sat in the car, just looking at this, at the same time, this week, I've had over the past, I'm just going to say 20 years, I've had people make fun of my fears. Oftentimes, it's Shane. And something will happen. I don't know. Let's just say I have to spend, like when I had to buy hay, it was like $3,000. Or I think it was $2 or $3,000. I know that's a big difference, but I can't even remember how much my hay was. And I had to pay a chunk of change to buy hay for a year. And when I was giving the man the thousands of dollars, I was feeling sick. And Shane was like, we got in the car and he was like, what, are you going to be homeless now? Because you spent $3,000 on hay, you going to be homeless? You know, like, and I'm sitting there feeling like I'm going to have a panic attack because I just spent all that money. And Shane thinks it's silly that I fear being homeless. And in the past, he's not the only person when they find out that I had this fear of being Jimmy, they make fun of me too. And I can remember in particularly, there was this girl that was my best friend. She was my best friend. We were very close. And I can remember she would share her fears and I shared my fears. And she said, Judy, you sit here in fear being homeless and you have got a retirement account. And I was like, yes. And she's like, I'm over here with nothing. I have no retirement and my husband works and I don't work. I've not worked in, I can't remember how long it had been since she worked. She retired early, so she got a little bit of a pension check, but it was like very small, like only a couple of $100. Okay. And she was like, I don't understand. You sit here in fear being homeless and I have nothing. And when she said that to me and I got off the phone with her, I can remember going, how does she do that? Like, how the heck does she do? Like, how the heck? I would be scared to death if I thought at 65 years old, I had no Social Security and I had no retirement. I would feel like I could not breathe. And I remember thinking, how does she do that? And she goes, I don't worry about it. And I was like, how do you do that? Like, oh my gosh. Like, I can remember looking at my best friend and I was thinking, you're not scared at all? What if your husband dies? And I can remember throwing my fears at her, going, you need to be worried about it. Because her husband had heart conditions. He had already had a heart attack. He smoked like a chimney. He was a drinker. And I was like, he's a heart attack waiting to happen because he didn't eat right. And I was like, if he drops dead, you have nothing. You need to be worried about it. And I can remember sitting her down and going, we got to get your crap straight. Like, you can't do that. You need to know that you're going to be okay if something happens to your spouse. And I was thinking, I can remember like sitting her down and going, okay, listen, if you put back X amount of dollars in this fund, I can remember like, let me put you with my financial counselor, like advisor. Let me sit you down with him and let's talk about how, because she was, I'm trying to think how old she was. Oh crap, I think she was already in her 60s. She was in her 60s, and I thought, you're screwed. And I thought, I could just remember thinking, you're not scared of being left with nothing? How does someone do that? Like, I can't do that. And I can remember she was like, Judy, you worry about the stupidest things. You worry about the stupidest things. And she's not the only friend that I've shared my fears with, and they think they're silly because they're like, you have more than I have. And I told you guys, I shared with you guys that I go to counseling almost every week, and Shane triggers a lot of my fears. Okay. Not on purpose, but my fears trigger his fears, and they like clash. He's afraid everything's going to be taken from him from a woman. And I'm afraid that you're going to leave me with nothing and leave me homeless. And the two fears collide like this. So I don't know if you and your spouse have fears that do not line up, but Shane and I, fears are almost identical. Now, he doesn't say, I fear being homeless. But in his brain, he fears working and everyone taking everything from him because everyone needs everything and he can't even fend for himself. And the fears two collide. And when these two fears collide, it is a train wreck around my house because we're triggering each other bigger than ever. And I had to go to counseling to learn what all this was about. Because when we first got married, I was a train wreck. I was like, this dude is crazy. I was like, he thinks I'm going to steal from him. I've never stolen from anybody. Like, what the heck? And so I had to go to counseling. And let me tell you something. I had to go through a lot of counseling to get past this. This was not an easy fix. Okay. This was not an easy fix at all. And to this day, he will trigger me in a heartbeat. He will. So I've had other people throughout my life would say the same thing. They would say, Judy, I don't understand. Why do you fear this? You have more than I have. And when my counselor and I began to work through these problems, I can remember her saying, and I told you guys this before, but she was like, Judy, how much money do you need in the bank to not feel like you're going to be homeless? And I can remember she goes, I want you to answer my question. How much money do you need in your savings account to feel like you're not homeless, going to be homeless? And, I know the magic answer because my dad has instilled that in me all my life. You need 3 to 4 months of salary in your savings account at all times. My dad told me that my whole life. So I knew the answer. I need at least 4 months of salary in my savings account to feel safe. And she was like, okay, well, let's me and you start working towards building your savings so that you feel safe. And she's setting me up, right? Like she knows what she's doing, but I'm not realizing it. And so over the next, let's just say year, I began to be disciplined. Y'all know I got some discipline. I was disciplined and I put the money in my savings. And I can remember walking into counseling and going, I met my goal. I have this much money in savings. She was like, okay, so you're never going to be homeless because you got this money in savings that you said you needed in savings to not feel homeless again. And to make a long story short, I realized really quickly it had nothing to do with the dollar amount. And as I sat in the car looking at Jimmy, I was saying to myself, so Judy, you fear being homeless. Do you think that you'll live on the same street? And it's almost like I began to laugh at myself because sometimes our fears are so silly. You know, they're like, and they're really silly to other people. Because when I sit here with my best friend and she's 60 and she was 60 because I remember celebrating her 60th birthday. And she's 60 and she's like, you know, and when you have a best friend, you tell her everything, right? So she knows what's in my retirement. I've shared with her. And she's like, you fear being homeless and you have this. And I have absolutely nothing. And I don't fear being homeless. I feel like God will provide for me. And I'm thinking in my head, I remember saying this to her, dude, God gives you a brain. Okay. God gives you a brain. He ain't just going to bless you your whole entire life and you sit on the couch and not work and do anything. Like God gives you the ability to work and make good decisions. like you sit here and do not fear anything about your retirement. And I don't understand. Like that. And I can remember her and I getting into a bit of an argument because I was like, I was getting my preaching stick. You need to get your straight. You're fixed to be left with nothing. Girl, get it together. Get it together. And I remember, and she would be like, I ain't worried about it, Judy. And I thought, buddy, she's fixing to be in a world of trouble. And as I was looking at Jimmy in the car, I was like, so Judy, when you get homeless, are you gonna push a buggy around? And then I began to chuckle at myself because I realized how stupid my fears are. And I'm like, this is so stupid. Why do I fear this? And I know the reason I fear this. I fear this simply because I lost my mother in high school was fighting for her life in intensive care. I lost my grandfather at a young age. I remember I was performing that night on the field. And I remember after my performance, my Valorette teacher pulling me off to the side. That's my high stepper teacher. And she was like, your grandfather is in the hospital not doing well. And my grandfather was my life. I was the only granddaughter. I was spoiled rotten. He was my life. And he had never been sick. And I was like, he's in the hospital? And I remember them taking me to the hospital after the game because my mom couldn't get me from the game. So I remember them taking me to the hospital to my mother. And all these things happened to me at a young age. And my mother began to get sick when I was young. I was in high school, and it was my senior year. My grandparents, because I lived with a single mom. And so my grandparents had to come stay with us because there was 3 of us kids because my mom was in the hospital for fighting for her life. And I remember them sitting us down because they didn't expect my mom to make it. And I can remember me and my brothers were like, who's going to keep us? Like, where are we going to live? Are we going to be taken away from our school? I can remember all those fears. Here I am, 17 years old, with all these fears. And to make a long story short, I remember after my mom got out of the hospital, she was in the shower and her leg was this big. And I remember my mom, we lived with a single mom. And my mom got out of the shower and said, Judy, I need you to call 911. And I was like, what's wrong? And I looked down at her leg and I was like, Mom, what's wrong? Mom, what's wrong? And I had to call 911. My mom was rushed back to the hospital because she had blood clots all in her leg. And I remember them explaining to us that if a blood clot moves, it could go straight to her heart and kill her instantly. And I remember all this just sickness when I was young. And at my brother's wedding, we were in our 20s. We were at, it was rehearsal. We were all at the church for my brother's wedding. I was pregnant. And my mom was in the pew watching, the rehearsal, the wedding rehearsal. And I remember looking over and my mom starting to slump down. I was like, what's wrong with Mama? What's wrong with Mama? We had to call 911. She had to be rushed to the hospital. I can't even remember what happened that time. I think it was her diabetes again. And my mother ended up being in the hospital with my brother at my brother's rehearsal. And my mom didn't get to go, and neither did I, because I was at the hospital with my mom because we didn't have a dad. She was not married to Larry at this time. I had a single mom. So anytime my mom needed help, it was us kids calling 911. And my mother was sick my whole life, or my whole adult life, not when I was young. So the fears of being homeless stem from the trauma that I went through when I was a younger child. And that trauma follows me to this day. And even though I know I'm not going to be homeless, you can't convince me of that when I'm in the moment. It's almost like a panic attack. It's like, Shane's going to leave me with nothing. My retirement's going to be gone. The economy's going to fall and I'm going to lose all my money. And the reason I fear that is because that's what happened to my mother. Okay? My mother, do you remember when the economy just like dropped tremendously and we all lost a ton of money? Y'all know what I'm talking about? Well, at this point, my mom was married to Larry. And when the economy just crashed, all my mother's money in her retirement account went to almost nothing. And I sat and watched Larry go, we have no money. Oh my God. Oh my God. Do we pull out? Do we leave it there? Because there was a little bit of money left. And it was like, I can remember Larry trying to work and going, oh my God, how am I going to pay for a caregiver for Jane? Like, I can remember all this trauma happening to me as a kid. And when you have trauma as a young child, which we all have some type of trauma, it all looks different. But I remember all these things happening and they scare the crap out of me. Yes, I have a retirement account, but it can be gone in a second. If the economy drops and I'm close to retirement age, I'm screwed. So the fear of being homeless goes, what if I lose my retirement? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Oh my God, I'm going to be homeless. And the fear, when it hits me, throws me into almost a panic attack. So when people begin to make fun of the fact that I fear being homeless, it pisses me off. Hey, you know how Judy talks about being homeless all the time? She will never be homeless. Well, duh crap, Sherlock. It's a lot deeper than a dollar amount. The fear that I fear is a lot deeper than what's in my pocket. And I can remember when me and my friend began to have this argument. She fought with me, telling me that my fears were stupid. They are. She is correct. They're so stupid. They're so stupid. But they're real. And your fears are real. And your fears may seem stupid to your family, to your friends, to your spouse. And they're like, Charlotte, dear Jesus, Charlotte, you're not going to be homeless. It's stupid. Quit worrying about stupid things. And people say that to you. And people make fun of the fact that you're open and honest about your fears. And a lot of times when you're open and honest, people like to jab you with a knife when they get mad at you. And they jab you with a knife and they go, you know how she constantly talks about she's not going to be homeless. It's like someone's jabbing me in the heart going, you're right. I'll never be homeless because you know why? My parents taught me better. My parents taught me how to work. They taught me to always save. They taught me how not to be homeless, how to always provide for myself. My mother instilled in me, I told you that this week, my mom instilled with me, do not ever depend on anybody, Judy. The only person you can depend on is yourself. And she's right. The only person you can change, the only person that's not going to let you down is yourself because you make right decisions. Shane is a human being. Shane is going to let me down. My friends are human beings. They're going to let me down. The only person I can depend on is myself. And myself has to make good decisions for my future. And I know sometimes people go, I wasn't raised like you. My mama didn't teach me. My mama didn't teach me to be independent, not to depend on a man because my mom and dad were married their whole life. And my mom always depended on my dad. We're all different. But my parents instilled in me in always putting back and always being prepared. Always having good credit. Always, it's okay to make a bad decision, Judy, but get up, dust yourself off, and get to work. Because my parents, now when I was in high school, I did not work simply because I was in sports. And when you're in sports, you do a lot of practice after school and you have games and all that. So I never worked as an adult. But let me tell you how they instilled those values in me. I was a Girl Scout, okay? I was a Girl Scout. Did y'all take your Celtic salt? I was a Girl Scout. And you know, Girl Scouts sell Girl Scout cookies. And I remember, I don't know, some stupid prize like a sticker. I don't know. You know, whoever sold the most got a pack of 50 stickers that everybody wanted because they were popular. And I can remember my dad. I was like, Dad, I got to sell these dang Girl Scout cookies. Will you help me sell them? I ain't helping you. You're going to do it yourself. Come on. We're going to sit out in front of the Walmart and we're going to sell cookies. My nose is running like crazy. We're going to sell cookies. You're going to do it. You're going to tell these people why you're selling the cookies. You're going to tell them what kind of cookies you're selling, and you're going to have to come up with why they should buy your cookies. And I can remember him going, you want the stickers? You want the grand prize? You go and work for it. I ain't selling crap at my job. You're going to do it. And if my dad was standing here today, I would go, thank you so much for always teaching me to sell myself. Because my dad said to me from a young age, if you can sell yourself, you'll never go without food. You can always, if you can sell yourself to a job, whatever you're doing, you'll always have income. As a matter of fact, this is a funny story, kind of. But when I went through a divorce, I was trying to figure out how to be a single mom. And Vanson and I, my oldest son was already moved out. Vanson and I told you guys, we lived in a mansion. I'm not going to lie. We lived in a mansion. Okay. Our house was enormous. We went from this huge house to this little bitty apartment, Vanson and I. And Vanson was a sophomore in high school when my husband and I got a divorce. And Vanson and I had to learn how to make it. Okay. When you go from having everything to having nothing, it's an adjustment. But I was like, okay, what can I do on the side to make money? Because I need to work 2 jobs. Because I am broker as a joke, and I'm trying to raise my teenage son that needs a car, that has insurance and all this crap. Y'all know how that works. And so in my head, Dad told me if I can sell anything, I'll never starve. So I am scrolling through Facebook. And this was, Vanson was 15. Vanson is now 26. So 11 years ago, I'm trying to figure out how to be a single mom, right? I'm trying to look for extra income to pay for my son's, because he was in theater. He was in, you know how all these school fees, they're into sports and theater and arts, and you got to pay for a tuxedo, and you have to, because he was in Magicals, which was a singing choir, show choir. Manson was in a singing show choir, and so he had to wear a tuxedo, and they went to Disney World to perform, and I had to pay for Disney. And I'm like, I can't breathe. I am broke. I'm a single mom. So I was like, what can I do to make extra money? And I was like, okay, my dad told me that I could always sell something. What can I sell? I was like, what can I sell? At the time, my younger brother that is now homeless was my dad made over. All three of us kids could sell ice to an Eskimo. We can. Dad instilled sales in us. And all 3 of us kids are brilliant at selling. So at the time, my brother owned a mattress store, and he started selling Kodiak cups, which were like Yeti cups. I was like, I can sell those. I can sell those. I was like, okay. So I go sit my brother down and I was like, okay, how much do they cost? What should I sell them for? Because at the time, the cups were a new thing. Okay. I realize they're a fad now, but they were a new thing. So I started selling Kodiak cups. Then I went and found a person to monogram them. Okay. I was selling them like wildfire. Okay. Online, like on Marketplace. I was like, so then I started a Facebook page. Okay. And I called it Kodiak Cups. And the page was growing and growing and growing and growing and growing to the point where Kodiak Cups, the business, called my brother and says, your sister, everyone thinks your sister is Kodiak Cups because her page is so big. She needs to change it to some other name because people are going to her for customer service. Okay. And then I had this brilliant idea. Okay, I can do these cups as a fundraiser in the schools. So what I can do is go around to these schools and sell these Kodiak cups, and the kids can make money for like theater or sports, and I can be the distributor and sell these cups. So I did. And I became a freaking rock star on the side as a side business to be able to pay for my son's tuxedo and my son's performance to go out of the state to perform in competitions. I was able to do that. Well, then it was a fad, right? So then it comes to a dead end. And I was like, okay, now what can I sell? So I saw this company that was down the street. It was like a secondhand store. And I used to go in there because they had like name brand products for almost nothing. Well, I walked into the store. Do y'all remember the Naked? It's called Naked. It's an eyeshadow palette like this, but it's called Naked. And they had a Naked 2 and a Naked 3. And there was an eyeshadow palette. Well, I walked in there and they had cases of Naked palettes. And my wheels started spinning. I was like, Dad said that if I could always sell, I'll never starve. And I'm this single mom trying to figure out how to make it, right? So I see these cases of eyeshadow palettes. And I go sit in my car and I was like, should I do it? Should I not? Should I do it? Should I not? Should I do it? Can you sell these? And I was like, I feel like, and I remember Shane and I were dating. And I remember calling him on the phone and going, dude, you're going to think I'm crazy. He was like, what? I said, I walked into the store and there's Naked palettes everywhere. Like cases. He's like, what the crap is a Naked palette? I'm like, it's an eyeshadow palette. I think I can sell these. The guy told me that he would sell them to me, I don't know, for $5 a piece. So Shane, if I buy several cases of these eyeshadow palettes and I sell them for $15, I'll make $10 a palette. And he was like, so how much money are you going to spend? I'm like, if I invest, I can't remember. If I buy $500 worth of palettes, I can triple my money. And I can remember Shane thinking I had lost my mind. You're going to sell eyeshadow palettes? Yes, I think I can do it. So I walked in the door and I felt sick. I felt sick in my stomach going, oh, dear Jesus, I do not have $500 to invest in these eyeshadow palettes, but I feel like I can do it. And I walked in the store and I said, how much for all of them? And the man was like, all of them? I said, how much for all your cases of eyeshadow palettes? I said, I'll tell you what. And then I began to negotiate because Dad taught me to negotiate. I said, I'll tell you what. How many do you have? And the man was like, I have 10 cases. I said, okay. If I give you $500, can I have them all? And I remember the man going, well, no, okay. I said, all right, I'll walk away. Wasn't worth it. If it's meant to be, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. And I get in the car and I have all these cases of eyeshadow palettes in my car. And I got in the car thinking, what the? I just spent $500 on eyeshadow palettes. It's like, this is crazy. So I get home and I was like, all right, Judy, lock in your seatbelt. How are you going to sell them? I was thinking, how am I going to sell these eyeshadow palettes? I got a kid to pay for. So the first thing I did is I put them on Marketplace. And my phone started blowing up with people wanting to buy the eyeshadow palettes. And I was like, yes, I knew it. I knew I could sell them. So I began to sell them. And then Vanson comes home and I'm like, hey, I sold 200 today. And he's like, you sold 200 eyeshadow palettes? I said, I did. I drove all over and met people. And he was like, Mom, you are crazy. Next thing I know, Vanson is selling the eyeshadow palettes. My son is at school because I said, listen, you sell I pulled a Fred on him. Fred's my dad. I said, hey, dude, you want some extra money to go out this weekend? You're going to have to sell eyeshadow palettes. And he was like, Mother, I'm a guy. I'm like, you know all these girls in your theater and you know all these people in your magical program. Sell the freaking eyeshadow palettes. Vanson was selling eyeshadow palettes like there was no tomorrow. Me and Vanson had done opened up a business for naked palettes, and we were selling them. Like, as a matter of fact, I sold every single eyeshadow palette in a week. And Shane was sitting on the sidelines because we had just freshly started dating, and he was like, "What the? I cannot believe she just did that." And me and Vanson high-fived each other and we were like, we just tripled our money. And Shane realized that day that I could sell anything. And I'm like, because my dad taught me to always work and be an entrepreneur and you can sell anything. And I was like, I have to, when you are a single mother, and your child has a performance in Disney World and it costs $1,200 and you're a single mom and you're like, dear Jesus, I do not have $1,200 and I don't have a mom and a dad to run to and go, hey, Mom, listen, Vanson has this performance. Will you tote me $1,200? I didn't have parents. My parents were deceased. I was on my own. Okay. And I did it. I did it. I figured out how to do it myself. So in my brain, I know that I'm not going to be homeless. But when I'm in the moment of, oh, dear Jesus, I'm fixing to be homeless, you can't convince me that I can triple my money selling eyeshadow palettes. Something stupid, okay? You can't convince me. Shane and I wish y'all could have known us when we were selling Kodiak cups. I ended up getting Shane into selling Kodiak cups, and Shane was selling Kodiak cups to, he sold 100 cups to a welding school because they gave out welding cups to their students and stuff when they would register. Shane, Vanson, me, we all were like, it was almost like we owned Kodiak. As a matter of fact, if you see Shane driving down the road, the word Kodiak is on the back of his truck to this day. We freaking owned Kodiak. We were thebomb.com at selling Kodiak. And I go to tell you this because as I was sitting in the car looking at Jimmy, is that what I named him? As I was looking at Jimmy, I was like, how did he get into this situation? How do you get so bad that you become homeless? Like, did he not have a good upbringing? Did his parents not teach him? Like, did he always just make bad decisions in life? Like, how do you get to the point where you're Jimmy and live on the streets? And I sit here and I think about my best friend that thought I was silly for worrying about being homeless. And I thought, what's she going to do? She has no mom or dad. She's pushing 65. I know she's upside down in her house. Like, is she not worried about being a Jimmy? And she's not. And people like that, and I can remember she used to say, I wished I could afford to go to the gym, or I wished I could afford to. I remember her because I had extensions way back then. I can remember her saying, I wish I could afford extensions, or I can't get this done because I don't have any money. I'm like, dude, sell some Kodiak cups, sell some freaking naked pallets. I don't feel sorry for you. I remember thinking that. I can remember thinking, if I can freaking do it by myself, so can you. I can remember having zero tolerance to the fact that she had nothing. Because you can always sell something. All you have to do is open your freaking mouth. Open your eyes. Look for an opportunity to sell something. I walked into that store and saw all these naked pallets, and I was like, this is an opportunity. I can do this. If I set my mind to selling these naked pallets, I can freaking do it. I know I can. I can see it. Instead of going, Manson, I'm sorry that you are not going to be able to go to your my sinuses are draining. I'm sorry that you're not going to be able to go to your school event, but I don't have $1,200. Sorry. I'm not that type of person. I figure it out. And I figure it out not by asking someone for something, because I was never given anything. Like, I had to figure it out myself. My dad, one time, I was working, so I had to be in my 20s. And I was living with my father. And I was probably 19. And I remember not having Christmas money for my family. And I remember talking to my dad about giving me some money to go shopping for my family. He he said, you'll see where my naked palate come from. My dad has owned a business his whole life. And he used to get into this side stuff. Like, he sold baby dolls one time. He sold metal detectors one time. He was always he sold paintings. Like, that was my dad. He would go to the market and he would invest money, and he would come home and triple his money by selling these products. My dad did. He used to embarrass me because he had a trailer hooked to his truck. It was always filled with something, and it would embarrass me. And I called him Fred Sanford because my dad's name was Fred. And I said, Dad, it is like you're Fred Sanford and Son. You have all this junk in the back of your truck, and it embarrasses me. Because we would go to a gas station, and I remember this man going, what's in your trunk? And he goes, oh, let me show you. Hey, Christmas is coming up. Do you need any toys for your kids? And my dad would be out of gas station selling toys. But I remember asking him for money for Christmas, and he goes, I'll give you some toys to sell. Are you flipping kidding me? You're going to make me sell toys. And then it became a challenge to me. He's like, I bet I can sell more than you. Oh, you think you can? Yes. I bet this Christmas I can sell more toys than you. I'm like, deal. Game on, Dad. Game on. I started selling toys like wildfire. I was selling them at work because it was Christmas. So it was the perfect time to sell all these cool toys that did all this stuff. And so I began to sell toys. And after I sold them all, Dad was like, good job, you won. Now you have Christmas money. My parents never just handed me $20 or whatever. They were like, you're going to figure out how to get your own $20. I'm going to show you how to do it. You're going to freaking sell your Girl Scout cookies. You're going to sell your toys. I don't care if you're embarrassed at 20 years old. You need Christmas money. Get your butt out and get a job. And I got snot all under my nose. I'm so thankful that I learned from a young age what it meant to get out of my comfort zone and do something. It's just like Sneed's farmhouse, you know? Okay, I have all these animals. And Shane looks at me and says, we're not spending our money to pay for these animals. So I don't know why you keep getting more animals, but we're not taking our money and doing without to feed them. So you got to figure it out. Do I go, Shane won't let us spend our house money on my animals, so I got to get rid of Leroy. I'm so sad. That is not Judy. Okay, Bucko, we can't take our house money and pay for them. Well, watch this, and I'll become president. Watch what I can do. And Shane sat back and said, figure it out. If you can't pay for it out of what you do, you're going to have to get rid of it. And it was almost like Shane was Fred, my dad, and said, figure it out. Listen, I'd sell naked pallets. I'd sell toys. I'd sell t-shirts. I'd freaking do whatever before I had to put a price tag on any one of my animals. I don't ask for nothing. Y'all see me work my tail off to make ends meet. I don't say, Shane, times are hard right now. And listen, we make enough money ourselves to pay for this farm, and I got to do Larry, Shane, and I can't afford to do Larry and my farm and do tours and do field trips. I can't do it. So we've got to pull from our own finances to help me pay for the farm. First of all, Shane would say, Shane is Fred. Shane would say, we're not paying for anything from this farm, from ourselves, because we have a future to worry about. This right here is our house money. This right here is your Sneed's farmhouse. You got to figure it out. And I do. When you want something bad enough, you'll figure it out. So I hope today that somehow you can relate to me. I hope that I said something that lets you know a little bit more about how I was raised and my thought process. And I hope that you can relate to me in some way. You know, I'm going to be Fred for just a minute. I'm going to be my dad. You don't have to do without. You have a mind, you have eyes, and you have a mouth, and you have the determination. If there's something that you want bad enough, you'll figure it out. You'll work for it. No matter if you have to go sell naked pallets, okay? You'll figure it out. I think that when you ask for something, when you ask for money or you ask for an item or something like that, I feel like there's no learning lesson in it. You become a dead end and you're going to be Jimmy. And none of us want to be Jimmy. Jimmy's made a lot of bad decisions in his life to get to the point where he is. He probably turned his head against his own determination and his own self-worth. But I believe as I sat there and looked at Jimmy, I'm like, Jimmy, you're better than this. You're better than this, Jimmy. Get your straight. Get your crap straight, Jimmy. And it's not too late. And you just want to shake Jimmy and go, don't you get it? There's a life better than this. Don't settle for it. Run after. First of all, I'm sure he was on drugs because he was talking to people that weren't there. I'm like, Jimmy, you're better than this. But I'm sure in life, Jimmy had a family, just like my brother has a family going, dude, you need to get off that crap. Dude, you've lost your business. Dude, go get help. Like, what the crap are you doing? Because Jimmy may have been like my brother and could sell ice to an Eskimo. And Jimmy could have had a family that instilled values in him. But instead, Jimmy kept turning his head and wouldn't listen to anyone and just kept going after what he thought was making him feel good. And now Jimmy found himself on the road with clothes in a grocery cart, pushing it, talking to people that aren't there. And I'm like, Jimmy, come on. I know your mom and dad taught you better than this. Come on, Jimmy. You got a brain. God gives you a brain. Even if you weren't taught, but even if you came from a life of addicts, you got a brain. God gives you a brain, God gives you eyes, and God gives you a mouth, and God gives you hands, and God gives you feet, and so forth. You are better than this. And I just wanted to pop Jimmy right in the face and go, get it together. But I also was looking in the rearview mirror at myself and going, Judy, this is what you fear? Seriously? Get it together, Judy. Get it together. If you got to sell freaking naked pallets, get it together. You're not going to be homeless. Figure it out, Judy. And it taught me a lesson about myself, and it taught me a lesson about people like Jimmy. And it was a trigger to me because I sat there and looked at Jimmy and I was like, that is my brother. And I'm going to ask all of you that are present right now. My brother has court this week. And if my brother doesn't show up for court, my 20-year-old nephew has to pay his bond because he bonded his dad out of jail because he thought that was the right thing to do. I just pray that my brother will show up for court for my nephew. And I pray that if my brother chooses the lifestyle of Jimmy, it's hard to fathom the thought that you have a family member that won't work and just chooses this lifestyle, because my brother's better than this. My brother was raised right. My brother knows better. But meth chose my brother. And now my brother is now Jimmy and walks around the streets with nothing. But God gives us all a brain and eyes and a mouth and determination. You just got to dig for it, because you're better than this. All right, guys, I love you guys so much. Thank you for always being here for me, for listening to me, for encouraging me. Thank you guys for what you do for Larry. The comments you leave for Larry, the cards, the gifts that y'all sent him. Thank you. You're better than this. I'll see you guys Wednesday.